In the high-pressure world of healthcare, where lives hang in the balance, caregivers often forget to care for themselves. Burnout, emotional exhaustion, and empathy distress have become a silent crisis. Many healthcare professionals, especially those in end-of-life care, form deep bonds with patients. Yet in fast-paced clinical systems, there is little space to grieve, reflect, or process loss. Over time, this emotional burden accumulates. But what if there was a way to support those who dedicate their lives to healing others? Leading this work is Professor Andy Ho, a psychologist at NTU whose research focuses on dignity, compassion, and meaning in end-of-life care. Through years of working with patients, families, and healthcare professionals, he witnessed firsthand the emotional weight carried by those on the front lines.
Hi, I'm Dr. Andy Ho, and I am Professor of Psychology and Medicine at NTU. About 15 years ago, I had the opportunity to be recruited to join a new project in Hong Kong that looks into end-of-life care. And then I had my first interview with someone who's actively dying. And I remember going into a senior assisted care facility, a nursing home in Hong Kong, and just entering the place was a shock to me in terms of how much disarray there was in the care environment. And as I speak to more and more patients, understand their condition, understand their suffering and the pain as they face mortality, it really led me to think deeper about what I want to do in my life. We spent a great deal of time training healthcare professionals to work in the industry. And what we see is that after they go into the industry serving patients who are dying for 2 or 3 years, many of them leave the job because of the stress that they face.
In clinical environments, efficiency is often prioritized, but emotional processing is rarely built into the system. Without support, empathy distress can slowly erode resilience.
A lot of times when we're in the daily hustle bustle of looking after the patient, we lose sight of why we're in that industry. We lose sight of why we want to be a doctor or nurse or social worker in the very first place. So this program, Mindful Compassion Art-Based Therapy, is really an integration of using the reflective power of mindful meditation and also the expressive power of art-based therapy for our care recipients to be able to have that space to really reflect on what has occurred to them. What are their experience of strength, experience of weaknesses, experience of challenges, experience of losing a patient. And while having that space to reflect, we also want to provide them the opportunity to express what has occurred in their mind. So this integration of reflection and expression allow our participants to be able to tell their story, engage in a process what we call narrative identity processing. The more you retell your story, the more you're able to understand what you did, why you did it, and it helps you to reintegrate your sense of loss into your everyday life so that at the end of the day, it helps to build that sense of meaning. And to be able to help refuel and recharge and remotivate someone to continue to do the important work that they do. MCAT involves a 6-week, 18-hour intervention. So participants come in groups of 12 to 16 participants. They work in a group format. Each week they meet for about 3 hours. And each week the structure is similar. We start with a brief psychoeducation to talk about the topic of that week, such as self-care, such as stress management, such as cultivating internal strength. And after that psychoeducation, we dive right into a meditative component to help them reflect on that week's topic. And then it also translates into a guided imagery process for them to reflect on a specific experience that they had. After the meditation and guided imagery, we then invite them to create a piece of art that explain and define their experience. So for example, on a week that focuses on stress, we ask participants to create a symbol that define the stress. What did the stress look like? And after the break, we ask them to look at the stress that you have created. What can you do to change it so it become more acceptable to you? So symbolically, we transform something that's really stressful to something that is comforting. And then they break into small group discussion to have this verbal dialogue to express what they have done and what was the meaning behind the art. And then we break into large group discussions, so there's a consortium of experiences, and we break after a mindful checkout. So each week focus on a different theme, and each week's theme progress and scaffold on each other. So it gets deeper, from self-care to stress to meaningful patient interaction to challenging patient interaction to processing loss and grief, and eventually ending with meaning.
MCAT integrates guided mindfulness practices with creative expression. Through art making and group reflection, participants explore difficult emotions in a safe and structured environment. The goal is not artistic skill, but emotional awareness, self-compassion, and reconnection with meaning.
We did a randomized controlled trial with about 60 end-of-life care professionals working in the Singapore end-of-life care industry community, including doctors, nurses, and social worker and personal care workers. We found that after completing the 6-week intervention, participants were able to experience not just a significant reduction in stress and mental exhaustion, they were also able to experience an elevated sense of resilience and also the ability to be more compassionate towards themselves. They're able to look after themselves better, to pay more attention to the emotion and regulate their emotion. Moreover, they're able to experience a higher level of quality of life. And all of this was quite amazing because not only was the finding significant, but the effect size, the magnitude of change that the intervention can bring to the individual, it's much higher than your traditional psychotherapy. In fact, after MCAT was originally developed and tested through an RCT, we then translated MCAT into something called MCAT-DC, Mindful Compassion Art-Based Therapy for Dementia Care. And we targeted specifically with family caregiver who look after a loved one with dementia. Because dementia is a progressive degenerative disease that brings multiple losses to the patient as well as the caregiver. And so we looked at this particular caregiver group, understand the vulnerability that they face, and we want to be able to support them. We also understand that for a family caregiver where the work is 24/7, there's no break. To get them to come to a session for 6 consecutive weeks, 3 hours a week may not be possible. So we actually looked at our structure and reduced the dosage from a 6-week intervention to a 4-week intervention, from 15 hours to 10 hours. And in fact, MCAT-DC was actually conducted in the midst of COVID. So instead of doing this physically, we translated it all through a virtual platform. And after an RCT with over 100 participants, we found similar findings. Family caregiver who looked after a loved one with dementia experienced reduction in stress. They're able to experience higher quality of life, greater ability to be mindful of their emotional regulation was improved, and also a greater sense of resilience. So that really goes to show that MCAT-DC or MCAT itself is very versatile. It can be translated and accommodated to different population group. And moreover, it can very well be translated into a digital format using virtual platforms for us to deliver this intervention. We can also integrate digital therapeutics, even AI, into this so that we can create a community of caregivers that supports each other through the stories, through the arts, and through their experiences.
At the heart of every healthcare system are people. People who carry stories, grief, hope, and responsibility. Mindful compassion art-based therapy represents more than an intervention. It is a step toward a more compassionate and sustainable future in healthcare. Because when we care for the caregivers, we strengthen the very foundation of healing itself.
The quality of care to patient is only as good as the quality of health of those providing care. So as we continue our work in supporting those who are sick, ill, vulnerable, and even dying, we must not forget to look after ourselves.
The journey toward a healthier, more compassionate world does not end here. The time to act is now. Let's create a future where healing extends beyond patients to those who provide the care.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and follow us for more groundbreaking research from the world of academia. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we take a closer look at Japan's grand strategy and how it continues to shape regional and global dynamics.